Good evening. My name is Haneen Sayed, and I'm a member of the Board of Directors of LIFE. On behalf of LebNet and LIFE, we welcome you to the first of our Lebanese NGO series. Let me first quickly introduce two organizations for those of you who are not familiar with us. LebNet, a nonprofit organization founded in 1999 in Silicon Valley, connects and empowers over 2,500 Lebanese diaspora members in tech across the US and Canada. Its mission is to support Lebanese tech professionals and entrepreneurs globally through networking, mentorship, and career development. LIFE was founded in 2009. It's a global professional network aimed at empowering the Lebanese community and working together towards a brighter future. With around 1,500 members across 20 chapters spread across the GCC, Asia, Europe, US, and recently growing into Latin America, our impact is on education and job creation. Both organizations are extremely concerned about what's happening in our country, Lebanon. Over the next few weeks and months, we teamed up to host a series of online events dedicated to highlighting the vital work of NGOs in Lebanon during this devastating time. We aim to showcase on the ground work that is done by these organizations, share their insights, hear about their challenges and their needs. We hope to amplify their voice by raising awareness about their impactful work. Lebanon today is facing an unprecedented humanitarian crisis in both scale and depth. Within just 3 weeks, more than 1 million people were displaced from their homes, fleeing for their safety and seeking any form of shelter. As of October 15, there are more than 2,300 conflict-related deaths and more than 11,000 wounded. At least 94 health workers have been killed while on duty. About 1,000 primary healthcare centers and dispensaries are closed, and 39 attacks have taken place on healthcare facilities. The rapid displacement is significantly increasing public health risks, with overcrowding in shelters raising the likelihood of infectious disease spread. Many displaced individuals lack essential supplies. Inadequate shelter and water supply will exacerbate health challenges as winter approaches. The government established some 1,000 shelters, 70 of which are public schools. However, this has now put the start of the school year at risk. Anywhere between 300 to 500,000 students are out of school today, out of a total student population of 1 million. To hear firsthand about this humanitarian calamity and how it is being handled on the ground, we have with us today three dedicated NGOs run by three amazing women: Sarah Al Charif of Ruwwad, Maya Ibrahimchah of Beit El Baraka, and Rana El Asmar of Arcenciel. So we'll hear from each of these NGOs about 10 to 15 minutes each, and then we will open up for your questions and comments. And I ask you please to put that in the Q&A. We have a large attendance, and so it would be hard to manage chat, but please do put your comments or questions in the Q&A, which I will take right after the presentation. So we'll start with Arcenciel, Rana Al Asmar. Rana is the head of the disability inclusion sector at Arcenciel with over 17 years of experience at the NGO. She has held multiple leadership roles, including director of the Human Resources Department. With a strong background in managing emergency and development programs, Rana is representing Arcenciel's emergency operations during current crises. So Rana, over to you.
Thank you, Haneen. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Hope you are all doing well. It's a pleasure to be here with you to represent Arcenciel. Arcenciel is a leading Lebanese organization dedicated to the sustainable development of society. For nearly 40 years, Arcenciel has been a pioneer in empowering marginalized groups, particularly people with disabilities, PWDs, without any form of discrimination. As our name Arcenciel, meaning the rainbow, we embrace the diversity of all people, shining our light on everyone, regardless of their background, and serving each person in need without any distinction. As per our mission, is to engage in sustainable development by promoting social, environmental, and economic objectives. Let's dive deeper into the numbers. In 2023, we proudly served over 65,000 beneficiaries, reinforcing our commitment to ensuring no one is left behind through our 5 core pillars: disability inclusion, health, environment, education and youth empowerment, and agriculture. Arcenciel has impacted communities across Lebanon and internationally by distribution of 10,000 assistive devices produced in our production workshops by persons with disabilities, treatment of 4,000 tons of healthcare waste, provision of 15,000 medications and 15 paramedical services, production of 2,500 ceramic items by 12 people with disabilities at Atelier Arcenciel, supporting more than 168 persons with disabilities in employment services and many other services focusing on sustainability and long-term development. Not to mention that Arcenciel has become one of the first assistive devices producers in Lebanon, ensuring accessibility and rehabilitating spaces for people with disabilities, and developing a national program to ensure their access to all rights and their inclusion, full and effective participation on all aspects of life on equal basis with others. Arcenciel's main achievement in the disability inclusion field is the law 220 over 2000, Accès et Droit, Access and Rights, that created a national program for the inclusion of PWDs in Lebanon. And that was happened through a lobbying with community leaders and local authorities. Arcenciel succeeded in the issuance and approval of the law 220 by the Lebanese parliament in June 2000, which aimed at securing PWDs' rights in Lebanon. Today, Arcenciel operates from 14 centers throughout Lebanon with offices in France and USA legally registered. We are also ISO certified for project management. Arcenciel is a founding member of the Lebanese Social Enterprise Association, Lebanese Youth Hostels Federation, Ecology Association, and Lebanese National Union on Intellectual Disability, and is an elect member of the National Committee for PWD and member of the Lebanon Humanitarian and Development NGOs Forum, LHDF. Over the years, Arcenciel has expanded its scope, implementing projects and interventions across an increasing number of sectors, each more diverse than the rest. Our diverse activities have enabled us to forge a strong partnership with numerous international organizations, which have been instrumental in amplifying our impact. Finally, I would like to mention that while our core mission is rooted in sustainable development, we are also quick to respond to emergencies. We have acted swiftly in times of crisis, including during the Lebanese war in 1990, in 1996, in 2006, in the Beirut blast 2020, and in the current Israel-Lebanese war, while always ensuring that being at the service of people, as well as acting sustainably, remains at the heart of our efforts. So it's a brief about Arcenciel. I invite you to explore our social media channels and visit our website to discover more about the impactful work we do. Let's move to what we are doing now, facing the crisis, the current crisis. From the very first day of this crisis, Arcenciel has been actively responding to support internally displaced person, IDPs, and those affected by the conflict, with a special focus on individuals with disabilities and those who have sustained life-altering injuries and disabilities. In Lebanon, people with disabilities are already among the most vulnerable, often denied access to their basic rights. In time of crisis, this vulnerability intensifies and they face even greater discrimination. In shelters now, individuals with disabilities encounter barriers to access essential services with dignity, and they struggle with issues related to accessibility, to mobility, and to adaptation, among many others. Arcenciel developed a comprehensive emergency response strategy that guarantees the inclusion, safety, and support for PWDs across Lebanon at the local, regional, and national level during and after the crisis. This strategy aims to address the unique challenges faced by PWD, ensuring that they are not left behind this emergency response efforts. The approach is both immediate and sustainable, focusing on their protection, access to essential services, and long-term recovery and integration. So as I mentioned, the strategy is on three levels. Local level, adaptation of shelters and immediate support to PWD. Regional level, as regional coordination across districts will focus on pooling resources and scaling up medical and rehabilitation services for displaced PWD, as well the production, collection, and distribution of assistive devices. On national level, policy, advocacy, and long-term support. Currently, to address these needs and ensure the rights of people with disabilities, Arcenciel is providing the following vital services. We are providing now assistive devices and medical aids like wheelchairs, crutches, walker, orthopedic shoes, hospital beds, diapers, and many other assistive devices. Accessibility and adaptation services for all the shelters and the house receiving the PWDs of the displaced people. Medication on the counter and chronic medication, hygiene products, food kits, clothing, mental health support through our inclusive circus team. Moreover, we are offering daily hot meals for displaced people that we hosted at our restaurant at Khan al-Maqsood in the Bekaa region. Again, you can explore our social media channels and website to learn more about our interventions and the range of services we are offering across various domains in this current crisis. As for the challenges, Arcenciel has identified two key issues on both the short and medium-term level. The first challenge is the severe lack of financial resources, which is due to two major reasons. First, lack of funding. Contrary to what the media is sharing, the actual funds received so far is very minimal, facing the immense needs we are encountering. Second, suspension of auto-generating money activities. In fact, at Arcenciel, we used to rely on several auto-generating activities, which were considered as our cash cows to fund our humanitarian programs. But these activities are suspended now due to the current situation. And therefore, we are truly struggling to secure the resources needed to provide adequate services for those in need. As per our second challenge is to secure the basic necessities of the hosting communities. The hosting community is already in need, as you know. Lebanon is already facing a severe financial and monetary crisis. And now, adding to the current crisis, these communities are really struggling to secure even the basic necessities. Many individuals have taken personal initiatives, sharing what little they have, but this is not sustainable at all. A major problem will arise very soon if internally displaced people continue to receive aid, while the hosting communities who have no income or minimum income due to the economic situation and the current crisis are left to fend for themselves. How long do you think are they able to stand? For example, the farmer in the Bekaa who can't even help himself anymore to cultivate and sell his crop to survive, how they will host and support the displaced people. Not to forget that education part, what is in the future for these students. Not to forget the education part is the most important part, as Haneen mentioned. In safer regions, schools have reopened, but many families have lost their income or seen it drastically reduced. How can they afford school fees? In the red zones, the students are out of school, and some schools have been occupied, leaving their future uncertain. So we strongly believe that we should assist and take care of the new hosting community, not just the IDPs. While we are doing everything we can, the scale of the crisis continues to grow. We are now in urgent need of additional funding to maintain and expand operations. Every contribution will help us continue delivering essential aid and services, ensuring that no one is left behind during these difficult times. Every donation, no matter the size, brings us closer to reaching those who are most vulnerable and in desperate need of assistance. Thank you all for your time and attention. I hope the insights shared will provide you valuable perspective of the current crisis. Thank you.
Thank you, Rana, so much. I mean, obviously, you're dealing with the most vulnerable of groups, persons with disabilities, and the challenges that you put forward are really quite difficult, and all of us need to think about them. So we'll move on to our next speaker, Maya Ibrahimchah. Maya was born and raised in Ras Beirut, Lebanon. She started her civic engagement work advocating for the preservation of national heritage, volunteering in the Ministry of Culture as a volunteer. Until 2019, she launched her own charity, Beit El Baraka. Today, the charity's database comprises more than 220,000 retirees and almost 30,000 students. I've always joked to Maya that it's like she's running a parallel Ministry of Social Affairs in Lebanon, especially with this database. Following the August 4, 2020 blast, Maya and her team set out to repair thousands of apartments, hundreds of small businesses, heritage buildings, and schools. In 2021, Maya and her team decided to launch a social enterprise, KANZ, which many of you have been to Beirut. I'm sure you have stopped there, and if you haven't, on your next visit, please go. KANZ aims to support Beit El Baraka financially while creating jobs for women and youth in rural areas, promoting the culinary and artisanal craft of Lebanon, gradually transforming beneficiaries into producers. Maya, over to you.
So thank you, Haneen. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I'm going to talk briefly about Beit El Baraka, and then we're going to move on to what we're doing today and what should be done next. Beit El Baraka is a Lebanon-based charity that is also registered in the USA with a 501c3 status and in Australia. We started, first of all, as a grassroots organization, and we grew with time to become an institution that has the capacity and the capability to work on a scale basis. We partnered with 65 local NGOs that were selected one by one and that were vetted very carefully, because today, in order to keep our OPEX at 12%, which is a record breaker, we have to outsource most of our services because we serve families all over the Lebanese territory. We have partnered also with many NGOs who, during the COVID and the explosion and all the sequential crises that occurred, have accompanied us, and we were able to test each other and test them and test ourselves to see how we all function in crisis situations. Our track record after the Beirut port blast clearly demonstrates that we offer the highest quality of work with the lowest cost, in full transparency, because after having repaired the 3,000 apartments, 686 small businesses, 7 schools, 12 heritage buildings, 21 building facades. Anyway, after all this work, the first time it rained, we received a call from the army saying, we would like to congratulate you because none of the apartments repaired had any water leakage problems, but we had to continue and repair apartments that were done by other NGOs, unfortunately, at very high cost. So today, this has enabled us to have the biggest impact on the ground per capita. Now, our work initially supports retirees. You know that in Lebanon, 11% of the population is above the age of 65. This is the highest aging population in the entire Middle East and North Africa. This is due mainly to people leaving. It's due to high infertility rates, very, very surprisingly. Youth out-migration also is a big problem. So imagine having 532,000 retirees and no retirement pension fund. This is absolutely outrageous. So we offer these people food. We have a lot of dignity in the charity work that we do. So when they come to us, they are offered cards with points, and with these points, they can buy whatever they need in a very, very dignified way. We also we have a huge agricultural project. We produce 20 tons of vegetables, 18 tons of fruits per season. We have every day 300 kilograms of dairy products that are transformed into cheese, etc. We have 35,000 eggs. I mean, the project has become absolutely amazing. It is organic. We do not spray at all. We use only, we recycle the food the food and the excrement of of the animals that we have, and reuse it in the land. So basically, it's a permaculture project. It's very sustainable. What do we have also? We have a free pharmacy. Our free pharmacy today is very important because access to medicine has become a huge luxury in Lebanon, unfortunately. So people come to us with their prescriptions. We give them the medication with nothing in return. If they don't have the prescriptions, they can go to 12 hospitals and 21 dispensaries that we support all over the Lebanese territory. They visit them and then they get their prescriptions. Now, with regards to how gradually we started growing, we started shifting into the emergency relief, and we became a kind of emergency relief organization because we realized that the need is so high and the government is so absent that all these sequential crises that were happening, the response was very slow on behalf of the government, and it was impossible for us to just stay silent and say, our internal governance says we have to only help retirees. We no longer had the luxury to do this. So we had to adapt, and immediately, we have a team of brilliant young men and women who are led by a fabulous CEO and a very active board. So we were able to adapt every time to all these crises. But the Beirut port blast, unfortunately and very sadly, was a learning curve for us that we are using today. After having repaired all these houses, small businesses, etc., we were offered the chance to transform one of the heritage buildings that we repaired. We got special funding for this building from La Guilde de l'Union Européenne. So we transformed this building rent-free into a social enterprise that we called Kenz, and the restaurant is called Beit Kenz. So we don't pay anything for the to be there for the restaurant, and the restaurant operates actually in an amazing way because everything you eat in the restaurant is bought from the agriculture project of Beit El Baraka, so that Beit El Baraka can use this money to cover the salaries of the farmers. And this way the project becomes sustainable, all the while offering our guests a fabulous farm-to-table experience that is organic. And it's a marvelous project, and I'm really very, very proud of this. Now, 100% of the proceeds go to Beit El Baraka. This is a project that was done to support Beit El Baraka. Unfortunately, just like Rana mentioned earlier for Arcenciel, we are facing the same problem. The restaurant is closed now. The shops are closed because of the situation. So there are absolutely no sources of income whatsoever. So during that period, we also realized that many students were sitting at home, not working, not studying, because while we were launching Kenz and we were still repairing homes, we realized that parents were no longer able to pay the tuitions of their children. So children were basically sitting at home doing nothing in the months of October, November, December. And this is when we decided at Beit El Baraka that it was time to again adapt to another catastrophe, and that was to launch an education mission called Fursa. It's in partnership with Murex. Fursa supports 28,735 students in 188 schools. Fursa had a major role in saving the education year, the school year for all the Lebanese students, because thanks to the donation of Murex, we were able to push for the opening of schools in 2021 when there was a risk of losing an entire year. Another education program that we did was with AUB, the AUB Education Department, the American University of Beirut. So we launched 6 computer science labs in 6 schools around the Beirut suburbs in very vulnerable areas. And this way, we were able to offer children, mainly teenagers, computer literacy, because today, when a person doesn't know how to use a computer or doesn't know how to use the internet, they are basically like people who couldn't read last century. So, and this protects children from hanging out in the streets and falling prey to political parties, especially in these areas. So these were 6 beautiful projects. I hope we will be able to continue them. They're not very expensive. Everything is recycled, from the plastic to the wall coverings, to the tables. The computers were offered by AUB, the trainings for the teachers. I mean, it's a fabulous project. So I hope we will be able to continue it. Anyway, now let's move on to the war today. When the war started, the first thing we did with the CEO is just sit back, take a step back, And we decided to reflect first on how we are going to intervene and what are we going to do, because we used the Beirut port blast as a learning curve, as an experience, and we didn't want the same mistakes that happened in Lebanon at the time to occur again. So the first thing was organization. We needed to be organized because the biggest disaster that happened during the Beirut port blast was the mess. And when people are disorganized, unfortunately, this gives way to organizations that are not very transparent to appear. It gives also a lot of space for bored housewives to just start criticizing and creating a lot of, I mean, it created a very toxic environment. So this time things are much more organized. Big NGOs are working. They are clearing the name of the civil society that was unfortunately a bit ruined by certain people, certain trolls especially. And we are working now directly with the governor of Beirut, who established an emergency relief room in which the major organizations work from. We all meet there, there's a hotline and people call and they immediately dispatch everything. So what we started doing was not, the idea was not just to distribute food and then start counting numbers and playing hero. This is not what we need today. We need to understand that before diving into all this, we need to understand the figures. And now I'm going to give some figures that are very alarming. So, but at least they will put things back into perspective and highlight the magnitude of this humanitarian crisis that has never happened since the Great Famine of 1915. First of all, we have to divide geographically the areas because there is now a major gentrification happening, and we have to understand how populations are being displaced. First of all, Beirut counts 450,000 inhabitants originally. So this is 9% of the total Lebanese population. Then you have Mount Lebanon that counts 39%. In Mount Lebanon, you have Dahi, and Dahi has 600,000 inhabitants. You have to consider that these 600,000 moved into Beirut that already has 450, and part of them also moved to the north. So speaking of the north counts 20% of the total Lebanese population. I'm talking from Jbeil to Nahr al-Kbir, including Akkar. Now, what happened in the north and what's going to happen in the north is, I think, beyond a humanitarian crisis. There's going to be a huge environmental disaster as well. You have all the people from the Bekaa, Baalbek, Ras Baalbek, Britel, all these people, plus a part of the people from Dahi, they all moved to Hermel and Akkar. How do you expect the environment to take in all these people in numbers? The sewage system is incapable of hosting that many people. There is not enough water. And when there is a shortage of water, you're going to have issues like cholera and skin diseases. And we've already had 3 cases of leprosy in one of the schools in Beirut. So we really have to take these into consideration before focusing constantly on just providing food and shelter and spending all the money on food and shelter. I mean, so much money. Let's remember, honestly, let's say this. During the Beirut port explosion reconstruction period, so many people spent so much money on food and mattresses and relocating people that we ended up Lebanon ended up repairing only 60% of the homes. There are, until today, 40% of the houses, and especially the heritage houses, that have not been repaired. And so much money was spent on food and immediate relief aid. So we just need to be very careful on how the funds are going to be spent now. And we need to collaborate with official centers like the Governorate of Beirut and Mount Lebanon to be able to do the work properly. Now, let's go to the worst figures. Like, this is not catastrophic enough. We have until today 23,000 homes and buildings that have been officially declared demolished. They do not exist and we cannot repair them anymore. This is estimated at a total loss of $700 million. The commercial and industrial losses are estimated at, I think, the last number was $15 million. You have 50,000 businesses and small businesses that have already closed. Our GDP, of course, shrank from $54 billion to $56 billion to $14 billion. It's catastrophic. And now we are probably going to be considered among the poorest countries in the world. 80% of people in South Lebanon, and here, please, we have to really focus on this number because this is going to be the most critical part. 80% of the people in South Lebanon are related in one way or another to the agricultural industry. Today, not only have they had to flee their homes and leave everything behind them, they lost their cattle, they lost the herds, 220 million square meters of land have been burnt. A large portion of them were burned with phosphorus weapons. So we don't know until now what's the extent of phosphorus on land. Can it be used in another 50 years, 10 years? We don't know. The losses in the agro industry are estimated until now at $350 million. So I think there is a lot of work to be done in this particular field. So what we need to do now immediately is think of a post-crisis response plan. This is the most important. We need to be organized and we have to zoom out of the situation, look at it from above, and try to imagine what would be the best solution while working all together, because this is not something that every NGO or government officials can work on their own. The government cannot function today without the civil society, and the civil society can never replace the government. So if both parties do not decide to sit together and do the work properly, we're not going to get out of this mess. So the emergency relief aid required for Lebanon today, according to Rabia Haber source on LBCI 2 days ago, it is estimated at $474 million. We have received, I think, until now, close to 100 million in Lebanon, but we have no idea where they are. I don't know. So what we need to do today, okay, the first part is offer food, blanket, shelter, medicine, assistive devices, etc. This is great. We're all doing this. For our part, just for transparency's sake, everything is published on our social media. Every single day, we're delivering 10,000 breakfasts, lunches, dinners delivered at 8 a.m., 1 p.m., and 8 p.m. in individual containers to avoid cross-contamination. We are now working on the project. This is a brilliant idea by our CEO to reduce the cost of $5.8 per person per day. We are now setting up mobile kitchens in these schools so that people can, in the meantime, first of all, they can get involved in the process of preparing the food for their community, etc. And second, it will cost us $50 per box for 2 people for 2 weeks. So this reduces the cost tremendously. We are also delivering mattresses, pillows. The mattress is at $17. It used to be at $13. Pillows are at $4. Quilts are for $7. I mean, prices are starting to shoot up very, very high. Rent was at $200. Now it's at $600 for the small room. I mean, it's pretty bad. Now, who are we helping? We are helping 2 categories of families. First of all, we have the families of amazing farmers, small producers, artisans, and they're such humble people. It's a joy to be working with them. I wish the media would stop putting so much light on the 5% who are really distorting the image of the displaced and focus more on these fabulous people that we are getting to learn, to meet, and learn about their culture, because we have been, if you want, South Lebanon has been distanced from the rest of the country. So now we're discovering this area and discovering the people who are absolutely amazing. So these are the first part of families that we're supporting in our 28 schools. The other part, it's the families of the soldiers of the Lebanese army, because Beit El Baraka is a very trusted NGO with the Lebanese army, because we have worked with them with the Hay'a Al-Ulya Lil-Ighathi for a long time after the Beirut port explosion, and they have seen how transparent we are. So they were very happy to ask us to support the families of the soldiers who unfortunately do not have proper salaries to be able to support their families. Now, This is not a long-term solution. This is immediate, and it's not going to last long. I don't know how much food we can keep distributing and how much medicine. I mean, on the long run, this is not sustainable. What we need to do now is focus on education. I know this is music to Haneen's ears, and since Haneen has come up with a brilliant solution, then we all have to walk in her footsteps and support her in this initiative, because this is the only thing that's going to get us out of this mess. So education cannot keep being the collateral damage every time there's a crisis in Lebanon. This has to end. And the fact that for 10 months, Israel has been threatening Lebanon of hitting, and yet for 10 months, none of our government officials has prepared one mattress, one parking lot. Nothing has been prepared. And then all of a sudden, when the crisis started, when the war started, automatically their first response was, let's open public schools. And to hell with the 350,000 students who will no longer be educated. There are already, until today, 300,000 students who are not going to school. So Lebanon counts a total of 1,235 public schools, I think, more or less. From these public schools, you have 973 that were transformed into shelters. So what do you do with all the people living there? I think the government has just proven to us that they do not care about the public sector education. Education is not a priority for them. So one of the solutions we are going to propose, we suppose that the solution is divided into 3 parts because they are interlinked. So the first part is the brilliant idea of Haneen, and we are going to back her up with this as much as we can. It is to integrate public sector students into the private sector, because this is the only way out for the time being. We cannot leave 300,000 students without an education. Of course, not all of them can be placed in the private sector, because I don't imagine that anyone will be able to raise that many funds. So the second part of the solution, and this is from my humble opinion, we can ensure temporary housing units that are used by all the countries in the world when there's a flood, a typhoon, a hurricane. They have special housing units that are standard. They have everything needed for a family to live in a dignified manner. And these can be, located in different municipalities in a very fair way. And this will be temporary until the war ends. Once the war ends, should it be next month or next year, immediately these families who definitely want to go back to their land and do not wish to stay here, because we're hearing a lot of people complaining about the tents, worried that there's going to be an invasion of the southern population into Beirut. Absolutely not, because people from South Lebanon are people of the land and they just want to go home. They are not happy here. So they will take back their tents to their land until their houses are repaired. We are talking of 2 to 3 years to be able to start repairing these homes. These people cannot stay in schools for 2 to 3 years. So this is the second point. And the third point would be to put a lot of support into the public and semi-public schools, because the government owes a lot of money to charity organizations, public schools. Nothing has been paid. And unfortunately, they have paid, but a small part was paid on 1,500, so which is ridiculous. Anyway, we need to support these schools, because the rest of the students who will not be able to integrate the private sector then can go back to their public schools. So I wish to end with the challenges. There are only 2 challenges for us now, besides the war and the humanitarian disaster and everything else. But there are 2 main challenges. The first one is that the media is showing the war between Hezbollah and Israel. The media is focusing on a war. So they almost never mention the civilian casualties. They never mention what's going on at the human level. So we have to find a solution for this. We need to focus on finding groups of young Lebanese diaspora all across the countries and start pushing for Lebanon to be seen and Lebanon to be heard. It is not possible to commit the crimes that are going on here in the silence. It is unacceptable. We have to get the message through, and we have 18 million Lebanese abroad. They need to support with this. The second challenge that we have is shadow banning. So most of the campaigns we have online, everything that's posted on social media about Lebanon is being shadow banned because we're receiving messages on the ad saying this post cannot show in Canada, it cannot show in Europe, it cannot show in the States. We're being blocked everywhere. So this is reducing funds because, this is the message of the world. Lebanon is not of any interest right now. So we need to find a solution for this. We need to show the magnitude of the disaster. And we need also to have someone, I don't know who can do this. Haneen, maybe you can support us with this. We need a little bit more guidance with regards to the international funding coming from the United Nations. We don't know why when international funds are sent to Lebanon, for example, recently $12 million were sent to Lebanon. When we asked to present, for example, to this fund, apparently it was pre-selected NGOs. What does pre-selected mean? In Beit El Baraka, we are very close to the diaspora. We have always been funded by the diaspora because they know who we are. They know that we're a trusted NGO, that we're doing this because our heart is in the right place. So we don't care. We're loud mouths, and we're always going to be loud mouths. So this time, every penny counts. We cannot afford to have huge budgets like these dispersed just because we're friends or just because we're used to working with each other. This is not the time for this. The country is in deep trouble, and $12 million or $5 million have to be put in the right place, and the right place is schools and education. Thank you.
Maya, thank you very, very much for this powerful presentation. You touch on many, many things, and I'm sure there's a lot of interest and questions and follow-up, and thank you for highlighting education. And one of the next series we will have will focus on education and bring a couple of people, maybe even bring you back to focus just on what can be done on education, what's needed. And what I really like is your statement about how important it is. Civil society needs to work with government needs to work with civil society, because this crisis is just so big that everybody needs each other. We'll come back to some of the ideas also that you've mentioned and link them with some of the things that Rana said. Now let me move to Sarah. Sarah Al Charif, she's the Lebanon director of Ruwwad al-Tanmiya, NGO. She's been the director since its inception in 2012. She leads the community development organization in Bab al-Tibani and Jabal Muhsin in Tripoli. So we will hear a regional focused situation on Tripoli from Sarah, but this is of course very important because Tripoli is a big part of Lebanon and already a region, a city which has a lot of poverty, and we're adding more and more to it. So a lot of the work that they do in Ruwwad is literally centered on this front line between two disenfranchised communities that have witnessed many years of sectarian clashes. Sarah's commitment to women's advancement led her to establish Atyab Tarablos, a community kitchen, and then more recently, Beit El Mina social restaurant, which I have tried, and I also recommend next time people are in Tripoli to go to Beit El Mina. Both of those are under Ruwwad, which support financially the actual programming of the organization. So, Sarah, love to hear from you. What's happening in Tripoli? What are the challenges that you're facing? And over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Haneen. Thank you so much for the introduction. And I'm glad that I'm among very hardworking ladies making this place a better, this country a better place, I would say. Moving to Ruwwad, so I will present first Ruwwad as an organization and what do we do usually regularly within the marginalized communities we operate within. And then I'll be moving more focused I will be zooming into the emergency crisis, the displacement emergency crisis happening lately in Lebanon. So So Ruwwad, first, Ruwwad التنمية, it's a non-profit community development organization that works with disenfranchised communities through education, youth volunteerism, and grassroots organizing. It started back in Jordan in 2005 by Fadi Ghandour, who's a serial entrepreneur and founder of Aramex, one of the world's leading logistics companies. And he's a strong advocate of, a more public-spirited and decisive presence for the Arab private sector in the sustainable development of the region. So in 2005, Fadi mobilized Aramex and brought on board other businessmen and women to join the board of directors of Ruwwad in Jordan. And since then, Ruwwad, it's an organization supporting the most disenfranchised communities through a board of the private sector. They expanded to Egypt in 2011 and to Palestine. And in 2012, we started in Lebanon through Hala Fadel, who's the chairwoman and the founder in Lebanon. And I've been, working on Ruwwad since then, since inception in June 2012. So if I may, I'll be sharing just a slide here that would maybe give more clarity about the programs we do. So at Ruwwad, we work on 3 main programs. The first is the youth organizing program. The second is the child development program and the community support. So before moving more deeply into, the programs and the components of our programs, I have to also maybe give you a context. So when we decided to start in Lebanon, it was more specifically in Tripoli, between Bab el-Tibana and Jabal Muhsin, 2 communities that used to witness sectarian clashes due to their political affiliations and not due to their religious affiliations. So, and as you may know, between 2009 and 2014, there were clashes between the 2 communities, 21 rounds of sectarian clashes. When we started, we have witnessed ourselves between 2012 and April 2014, 10 out of the 21 rounds of sectarian clashes. We have witnessed the reconciliation that wasn't actually a reconciliation, but a political decision to stop the clashes between the 2 communities. And we've been through a very volatile and insecure context since then, between, a study published by ASQA considering Tripoli the poorest on the Mediterranean Sea, and what's giving it the weight of poverty, it's mostly the 2 communities of Bab el-Tibana and Jabal Muhsin. So there was initially a layer of poverty there, and there was an additional layer of poverty that has been added due to the sectarian clashes as well. And of course, in 2019, we've all witnessed in Lebanon the financial and economic crisis, and we're still witnessing it now. So this is a 3rd layer of marginalization. And now with the war and the displacement crisis, I would tell you that, for example, now in Tripoli, we have 16,000 IDPs, internally displaced people, from which 50% are within the same communities where we operate. So imagine a community that has been already considered to be extremely disenfranchised. Now you have to deal with all these constituencies within the community. So moving now to what we do. So in our youth organizing program, which is the main model of Ruwwad, we are positioned to be an educational organization after all. So we provide every year, we have a scholarship funded program where we open scholarship opportunities to the youth living in those communities and their surrounding areas as well, that are living in financial distress, unable to pursue their university degrees. They used to apply in hundreds. Lately, they apply in thousands. They go through a very tough screening process until being selected. Once selected, we provide them with a full scholarship until they graduate in any university of their choice in Lebanon for any major of their choice. But this scholarship is conditional. So for them to keep it, they have 4 conditions in return. First, they have to succeed academically. Second, they have to give back 4 hours of community service on a weekly basis to support their local communities through the programs that we do have on the ground. Third, they have to attend all the trainings that we deliver in order to prepare them for the job market upon graduation. And fourth, they have to attend what we call Dardashat, which is a cultural debate session happening on a weekly basis, where we open subjects that could be taboo in their communities or that could be currently being discussed on the media or on the social media. And we leave the floor for them to express themselves and to put into practice all the communication skills they have acquired. And it's where also we host speakers and we boost their self-confidence by expanding their network and having a conversation with those successful, people that we host as guest speakers. We try as much as possible to help them also in internship opportunities and employment opportunities. But also we do have entrepreneurs. So we have many students that have graduated and they had their own businesses as well. So we try as much as possible to support them. Moving to the second program now, the Child Development Program. Under this program, we target the children that are aged between 6 and 12 years old within the public schools, because we have a permission that, we take it every year from the Ministry of Education. We have interventions in those public schools. And also we have our Child Learning Incubator, which is our community center, which is a 4-floor community center, where we deliver everything related to the methodology that we adopt, which is the inquiry-based learning, where we encourage the students, the youth, or the children to be curious, to have the analytical and critical thinking, and to do their own research, and to work closely peer-to-peer with their colleagues through. And how do we do it? Through storytelling, creative arts, creative sciences, child literature, art, music, and theater. And of course, the scholars themselves are the volunteers facilitating and enabling all the work being done on the ground after we build their capacities through partnerships that we do across Lebanon to do all the capacity building needed for our students, the youth, so they can work closely with the children after the learning transfer has been done. Of course, we work with the school directors, with the school teachers, and also with the parents of the children. Moving to the third program, which is also a very large program at Ruwwad, it's called the Community Support. Under this program, we focus more on economic empowerment. And when we say economic empowerment, it's happening through two tracks. First, it's the employment and employability track, and the second, it's the entrepreneurial track. Under the entrepreneurial, we of course support the creation of startups and the support of existing businesses as well to expand their work within the communities we operate within. And at the level of employment and employability, of course, we draft proposals, and we receive funding to be able to implement vocational trainings on the ground, apprenticeship opportunities for women and for men and the youth of the community through digital literacy. We have, programming courses, we have our own labs, we have food production, agricultural activities, and also crafts making activities where we enable women to be, generating income as well. So also, there is another track under the community support, which is the social enterprise or the sustainability arm. 10 years ago, we realized that we were not only being approached by the youth that would like to pursue their education, but also by women who have lost their husbands, their houses due to the war or to the clashes, and they are in badly in need to be generating income, given the fact that almost they're not educated, so we had to rely on whatever skills they have. So 10 years ago, we decided to initiate or to launch a community kitchen where we brought together the women of the two communities. We built their capacities with top-notch chefs in Lebanon and institutions in this sector to be able to launch our catering line. And since then, Atayib Tarablus Community Kitchen has started its own activities. The beauty of this kitchen, it's working as a social enterprise. The women are economically empowered. There's a social cohesion and peace building level in our intervention. And third, all the profits generated by the catering are being channeled into our scholarship fund program at Ruwwad. So it's also supporting the main mission of Ruwwad, which is the education. And 1 year ago, we also launched Beit El Mina, which is a social restaurant supporting exactly the same mission. Women working there are the cooks of Atayib that has been trained. And all the profits are also channeled into the scholarship fund program of Ruwwad to support the education. Now, we are in the development sector since inception until today. But of course, given the fact that we are a community-based organization and a grassroots-led one, so we cannot detach ourselves. We were never able to really detach ourselves throughout those 12 years from the humanitarian or the relief, if you want, interventions. So that's why we have a help desk where we try to receive on a daily basis the cases that of the local constituency, and we try as much as possible to refer them to existing or to partners that could support them in their daily requests, from food security to medical interventions to shelter to etc. And also we receive in-kind donations and that we try also from the private sector that we try to channel as also because we are a credible organization. We have our volunteers, 169 volunteers currently that are recipients of a scholarship. So these are our volunteers working on the ground. And also because we have an access to the database within the community. So now moving to what's happening now. It's not the first emergency crisis we had to deal with, and unfortunately, it won't be the last in Lebanon. So when September, looking back at September 23rd, when, of course, the war in Lebanon has started 1 year ago, but the displacement crisis officially was felt and exponentially was felt in September 23rd or 24th, when all the displaced, they went into all the Lebanese displaced. Unfortunately, they went into all the cities and villages across Lebanon. So what happened is actually we saw that, we cannot just observe what's happening, and we have a role to play. So we went and it turned out that we were the first organization to just intervene in the first and the largest shelter opening in Tripoli, where there were 1,000 IDPs hosted without any presence for local authorities and without any presence for international organizations on the ground as well. So we felt that we were the first emergency responders trying to secure the basic needs since all the IDPs, they left almost literally with nothing. So everything is needed, from food security, from shelter, from mattresses, blankets, baby diapers, milk, etc. Even though we're not in this sector, but we found that the emergency or the urgency of acting, and given also the network we have and the credibility of the organization, we try to mobilize all the resources around us and to use the network we have and to use also the volunteers we have and the community kitchen and the social restaurant, all for that mission. So Ruwwad has been acting since then at several interventions. I would focus here. Okay. So we had a 1-week experience in shelter management. We are still working. We started to work and we are still working on the food security level. We have also created a centralized aid unit to receive in-kind donations and to be able to support as well within the collective shelters and within the apartments in Tripoli and also in the north of Lebanon. We are planning currently our educational interventions, especially under the child development program, and also we're trying to secure or to bridge a gap within the WASH sector. So in the shelter management, as mentioned, we had it was the largest shelter in Tripoli. Currently, we have 16,000 IDPs in Tripoli. 10,000 are within the apartments, and 6,000 are within 34 collective shelters. And by the way, in north of Lebanon, we have currently around 60,000 IDPs as well, distributed, between 6 or 7 districts. So under the shelter management, we had, this is something I really want to highlight. As mentioned by Maya, collective shelters most of them are public schools. And unfortunately, most of these public schools, they are also in need to be, they have an infrastructural problem. So IDPs, when they move to those shelters that are not meant to be shelters, at the end of the day, a classroom cannot be a bedroom. So most of those shelters, they had to be lightly or slightly rehabilitated, especially, for example, the hotel that used to be previously Quality Inn, for example, in Tripoli. It has been closed for 6 years. And it turned out that there's no electricity, no water, and even if you provide electricity, the water pumps and the pipes are not there. So and for example, toilets, we had to, for example, think about bringing mobile toilets so we could provide wash for the an access to toilets, which is the basic need. So there's a part, there's a need. One part of it, it's it's related to the shelters themselves. And there's also, another category of the needs, which is related to the IDPs or the internally displaced people. So I just wanted to just highlight this. So we had a management of in-kind donation. We created a pharmacy on the ground to receive, sort, and properly store donations within the shelter. Since then, we're providing hot daily meals, and we're distributing them across 22 shelters currently. So if I move to the food security, for example, this is our community kitchen, this is our social restaurant, and so these are the numbers. On a daily basis, we are using the maximum capacity production of the kitchen. So we're producing 3,000 hot daily meals that are being distributed to up to 22 shelters. But also we are providing dinner meals. We're providing breakfast meals using the social restaurant as well. And we're also providing what's called ready to eat meals that are similarly to the food parcels, but that are more ready to eat. So they don't need to cook them to be able to just eat quickly as possible. So
I hate to intervene, but because we have to end at 6:15 and there are some good questions coming in, you can wrap up in 1 minute, but then I'll give you a chance to respond during the Q&A.
Sure. So I will just move directly, Haneen, to the challenges, since for us, the interventions are mostly in the educational field, in the educational sector, in the food security sector, and also in the in-kind donation sector, providing the basic needs for everyone in need, whether within the collective shelters or within the apartments, within Tripoli and also in the other northern areas. If we look into the challenges. Of course, operating in marginalized communities is by itself a problem that needs sustainability. So imagine additional layer of marginalization being added, as previously mentioned. So now, the need is bigger and the funding is highly needed. Also, the tensions between the local or the host communities and the IDPs. Now we're not witnessing really real tensions, but of course soon enough maybe there would be some scarcity of resources, and this would lead to possible tensions happening later. Rana, are you raising your hand? Yeah, or just
no, by mistake, sorry.
Okay. But what's needed now in the educational sector, it's the access to online learning, including tablets and connectivity, academic support, cash for education, university fees, and materials for university students. And I would like to highlight a very important thing, that the war started in an academic year. So the students, the university students, more specifically in the south, most of them, they couldn't register at the Lebanese university, which is the public institution in Lebanon. So now they are spread across Lebanon, maybe there would be a possibility for them to pursue their universities within the faculties of the Lebanese university where they are living currently. So university fees are very important to also provide. Now winterization is very important, from clothes to carpets, blankets, heaters, fuel, etc. Food security is something that is also very important, to provide breakfast, lunches and dinners. And of course, medication, sanitary pads, baby products, the list gets, longer and longer, but of course, depends where do you want to focus. I can present, as long as you want, but I have to wrap it up, so.
No, this is very good. Thank you very much. So let me just try to quickly go through some of the questions. Now, some people are asking, for example, if Maya, you can share the statistics that you cited. I'm sure she will. Yes, you can. And also people are asking about where to donate. We will be sending the links and all the information to everyone right after this. And also this is being recorded, so people will have access to it, those who were not able to attend. Now, some of the questions are coming in, for example, about what's happening in the agricultural sector. Several of you kind of depend on that or work in that, whether through your own social enterprise, Beit Kans, or your restaurant, Sarah. So how is that affecting? And I was also curious about, since both of you have this income generating entity that is helping you fund
Right.
the charity. That how is it impacted, and how are you dealing with that? Another question, I'm trying to group them, is about is there a plan for disabled students in education? Maybe Rana, you can address that. There is a question about the role of the diaspora in advocacy. Salam likes it, and yet wants to think how this can be structured so it'd be quite impactful. But I think that that's a good idea. Someone is saying, after donating funds, what can we do to support from far, like tutoring for students, hosting fundraising events, so on? Some ideas you have there. And then someone is asking if there's been incredible response from the host community to support IDPs, but in view of the presence of IDPs in private apartments and fear of the host community to be targeted, what community level conflict resolution strategies would you recommend to mitigate hostilities? Sarah, I'm sure you have experience with that. So these are the questions. So maybe we'll quickly do a round and you conclude, because we will be cut off in about 7 minutes. Rana, do you want to come in on some of the questions? You're muted.
Yes. About the community, the hosting community. The question was what could be the solutions. We can share the list of needs that the community, the necessities that the community is already asking. I just mentioned the schooling fees and maybe long-term. I'm thinking about to have a fund for them as a cash money to them, to some very vulnerable persons. They detected they lost their jobs during this crisis, and they are hosting IDPs in their around or in their buildings, and without any return. So just like that, we can host them. I'm talking about many also schools in the region that are semi-private, and they are opened already, and with minimum funds. So also we can reach out them and see their needs exactly to sustain and to support the students.
Thank you. Thank you. Maya, do you want to come in on some of the questions?
Two things. First, the role of people abroad, the diaspora. I think the most important thing for the diaspora today is to create clusters and think tanks to see how to overcome the shadow banning on Lebanon and get the message out. There are lots of things that we can learn from small groups of student groups, doctors in Houston, Boston. I mean, you have so many Lebanese working everywhere. So we need to create think tanks. The second thing, we need to reactivate the fundraisers all over, because it's the only source of funding we're having until now. As I told you, this is a huge problem that we're having. And with regards to agriculture, this is going to be the major challenge, because you have, I think the entire South Lebanon area is under attack, and there is no way for these people to go back to their land. I mean, everything has been burned. So I think SEAL have a very important role to play in supporting their farmers and additional farmers. There's so much to be done, and so little is heard and seen. So we all have to get together and work together to get the message out. This is what's most important. Voilà.
Thank you. Sarah, conflict resolution?
Yeah, I would like also to share more about the role of diaspora, because I think we've always been really supported by their generosity. I mean, all the organizations on the ground, and having an unrestricted funding is very important because the only funding coming from personal donations is really kind of unrestricted compared with the funding that is coming from the international organizations on the ground. So you have more freedom, more flexibility to put it really where it's highly needed and to report back on all the impact on the ground. So they have definitely a role to play, and I think they're doing it. Now moving to the conflict sensitivity, definitely, I think everyone is sensing that when the crisis started, there was a high level of solidarity that I personally witnessed, and that was so beautiful. We really needed to see such a scene of solidarity, where people, they try to put aside their political affiliations, their political stances, and they realize that it's not the right time now to have their own views and perceptions. It's the time to kind of support, because it's a humanitarian crisis and everyone is a target. I mean, we could be a target at any time. So everyone, they tried to offer apartments, and some of them, they were offered, some of them they were rented at a very affordable price. And now, after, for example, what happened in Dgharta or in Daura, people, they started to get very afraid about, a possibility of not knowing who's really in those apartments, and maybe it's more safe to know to know who's in the collective shelters than who's really in the apartments. So people, they started to really panic, and neighbors that usually they accepted their empty apartments, or the apartments that is in their building was offered to IDPs or to people from the south. Now they started to put tensions and to create problems to their initial neighbor. So and that's quite hard to respond to, because you don't have a choice but to refer those families to collective shelters. And collective shelters mean additional public schools that are not opened yet. And by the way, if you go back to, for example, the MAHE, the Ministry of Education, and the UNICEF, they are putting a plan for education that would be announced very soon. And Haneen, Akid, of course, the details. So soon enough, those public schools that are not used, they're going to be used. And having additional collective shelters will also affect highly the education that is planned, the educational plan in Lebanon. So conflict sensitivity is something that we all need to address. And we, as an organization, maybe we had a previous experience in social cohesion and also peace building, try to create peace building initiatives and interventions. I think integrating IDPs with the local host communities is the solution, and integrating them through education, through economic initiatives, through income generating initiatives. I think that would help a lot. And unfortunately, what used to happen previously with ratios between Syrian refugees and Lebanese host communities, I think now it's going to be turned into a percentage of IDPs with the host communities. So this is how I see it in the upcoming few weeks maybe.
Thank you, Sarah. I mean, the challenges are immense. You've all mentioned them, and they'll continue to grow. I think what's very important I get from this is that also the situation is very dynamic. It will change over, as we go along. Needs will be different. First, it was initially food. Now it's going to become much more education, and shelter is, of course, key, and so on. So I think that's a very important point. Second is about the coordination. And not just within the NGO community, of which there are amazing ones. I mean, we've heard now from 3 incredible ones, and coordination within the community of NGOs, but also, of course, with the government, because in the end, such massive crises need to have government engagement. But I want to thank you all very much. I want to thank our attendants. We had over 130 people attending. Clearly, there's interest. This is recorded, it will be shared. And please stay tuned, everyone, for our next series of NGO spotlights. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.